hello to Sasha and Paul. And you guys are in Florida?
Yep.
Florida, cool. Wait, can you say something so I can make sure we have the audio working?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And then
You're
Holly in
very-
Canada, right?
I'm in Canada, yeah.
Yay. And Lily all the way from Seoul, South Korea.
Yay.
Cool. Well, we all met through Holly Hall, and we've talked about education and really thinking about this moment we're in, this great change we're in. And I like to say that things are falling apart or things are falling together, depending on how you look at it. And so for my life as an educator, I feel like things are falling together, and that there's a moment in time where people are starting to really ask questions about questions they weren't asking even 6 months ago about education. And so all of us have been connected around this deep belief in doing better for our kids. And so one thing I'm working on, and each person kind of share what they're working on, and then we'll just kind of let the conversation flow. But one thing I'm working on is, after 20 years as an educator, a teacher, principal, superintendent, is really thinking about how do we create a worldwide movement that starts to say that schools can be different. And what I'm really dreaming about is a massive paradigm shift where we're not just saying like, oh, let's have, smaller class sizes or some of these really great ideas that we've been talking about for years and years and years, but rather really getting totally outside of the box, fully outside of the paradigm, and starting to rethink what this could look like. And so the purpose of the web platform will be to amplify the schools and the programs and the models that are really different, that are really unique. And so you might have been hearing a lot of talk about schools not reopening in the fall. It's a subject of conversation. We just sent out a message to our parent group at the school I run to say, sorry, but we can't actually open because every single district in this county is not open. So as a charter school, it would be really risky for us to take that choice and make that choice. But to amplify the schools that are really different, and to say, like, for example, a micro school, 5 kids and a teacher that's being hired as a tutor, which people are now doing because they have to. But I've been talking about this for 5 years. Like, what if you start creating small schools in your community? And what if you start empowering parents to make choices for the kids, and empowering kids to make choices for how they want to learn? And so really thinking about what are the different ways we can do school completely different. And then connecting people, so amplifying the models, and then connecting people around the world that are interested in creating this change. So Sasha's in Florida. Sasha and Paul get together with maybe 100 families, or a group of families in their region, and say, we want to try out these micro schools. We want to try out an e-school. We want to try out whatever version they're messing around with. And what I found is the best programs are usually the ones that are like summer programs, when you get out of the whole box entirely. So, and then we say, oh my gosh, Sasha and Paul have this great program. They started with 100 parents, and now let's share this with the world, so that anybody who wants to do that can get the resources and the tools. So that's kind of the big picture. And the idea is that this platform would have courses and resources and connect people, and that it would just be this really vibrant, and it's a movement. It's not just a small group. It's across the world. And we had a meeting this morning in the Facebook group, which anyone's welcome to join. We had Canada, Nigeria, now we have South Korea. We had multiple countries represented in that 10-person group. And so this can definitely be, it's not just an American issue, it's an issue across the world. So anyway, that's kind of the big picture of what I'm dreaming about. And I always thank Holly Hall, because she did a reading for me when I first met her 2.5 years ago. And we were just starting our school. It was brand new, and I was worrying about how to pay the rent, and whether kid was going to throw a pencil at somebody's eye, all the things you're worrying about when you're working with children all day. And Holly's like, I just have a message for you from the universe, and are you sitting down? I'm like, huh? And I'm literally like hiding in the supply closet because I'm trying to find a place to talk to.
Place to have a private reading.
And she goes, yeah, you're this is much bigger than one school. You're going to lead, you're going to be an ambassador for change, to lead an education reform movement. And after she told me that, for the last 2.5 years, I've literally gotten almost like step-by-step downloads from the universe in my meditation, where I'm like coming out of the meditation, writing it all down. And it's exactly what we talked about 2.5 years ago. So when COVID hit and I was forced to close the school that I run, I just really felt supercharged around this calling that Holly reminded me about a couple years ago. So thank you, Holly. And on that note, I'd love to just kind of hear from Holly about what she's getting, what she's thinking and feeling about education, and then we'll hear from each to the other people about what they're working on.
Yeah, and I remember too that I had said that you're going to have to start delegating
You
some of
did.
the small things that, because you were just you were taking care of everything and you were doing
Yes.
everything and you were managing everything, and I was like, no,
Yes.
you're a manager, you are a coordinator, and you got to delegate and treat your team, treat your people that work with you like a team, and they really
Yes.
enjoy that team work, right? And then I got a couple stories. So then I wrote this book here, 101 Answers from the Universe. You can get on Amazon. And on page 81 on 70, question 71 is the educational system. Are we doing it all wrong, and what works? So I know that, David, you really resonated with that. I'm not going to read it because it's like a couple of pages long, but it basically, the universe is, I'm getting downloads of answers when I wrote this book, and the universe said that we're doing everything wrong. And that, and it laid out sort of a utopian way of how the educational system should be, in that kids of all ages can go into a shared environment, and they can choose what they want to learn, how they want to learn it, the way they want to learn it. If they change their mind that they don't want to learn this anymore and go to another class and learn that. But and I remember hesitating to write that because I was like, okay, people are going to think that I live in La La Land, you can't really do this. But I was like, no, I got to write down what I see. Well, interesting enough, Zac Efron just has this, I think it's called Earthworks or Earth something. It's a documentary where he's going around the world, and he's in Costa Rica, and it's a mixture, it's a commune, and it's people from all over the world with their kids and their families, and it's like families of 40, and they have a school, and that's exactly what they're doing. They've got kids that are 5 years old and kids that are 16 years old. They're all in the same classroom, and they're learning astrophysics, they're learning like fractions, but they're doing it because it's what they want to do. And everything is like playful tools for them to learn all of this. And it was like, that was what I was talking about. All schools should be like that. So it's a real thing. It actually is happening. And these kids are excelling. They're actually, there was like 13-year-olds that were doing something that a first-year university student would be doing in astrophysics. And I was just like, right? So yeah, that's my take on the education system. Everything's wrong about it. It's especially like westernized worlds, right? Finland, I guess they're doing different things. Iceland are doing different things around the education system. But yeah, you guys, anybody who's a teacher right now, and they think that they can't beat the system. So I like what Sasha said once, and I've had other teachers say this. And I remember I used to teach supply teaching, and you close the door and you do the things the way you want to do it, right? And the teachers don't know, the system doesn't know, the kids love it, right? You do mindfulness for 5 minutes. I remember at lunchtime we had to stay in, and I told them, you know what's in that cookie that you're eating? And after, it was so funny because kids would go, Miss, is it, they show me an apple, is this the same as the cookie? I go, no, you can eat, that's healthy, and cookies are okay once in a while, but the apple is really, it was just so funny that they were really interested. They were like grade 3, and they really wanted to know what was in their cookie, what was in their marshmallow, what was in their candied cereal that they were bringing for literally their lunch. It wasn't even a sandwich or anything. That was their lunch, sugar coated, Lucky Charms. So yeah, everything has to change around it. Eating in the school, making lunches, making breakfasts, making snacks, having a garden in the backyard, everything, right? I'm sure you guys all agree. And so all of you are ambassadors of change. All of you, any teacher that is frustrated with the system, that's a calling. That's all that is a calling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Holly. Yeah, and what I resonated with what you said in your book was really about these kind of like decentralized communities, and like you said, like kids choosing what they want and all these things. And that's what I've been working on for 10 years in the schools I've built, in the charter schools I've built, is figuring out how to, it's called personalized learning, which has kind of got a bad name, but giving the kids, it's really, and everything that's old is new. So we've already done this in the 60s, where the kids get to choose, and it's much more progressive and dynamic. And so, the system kind of started with this factory model. Everyone's trying to fit the, widgets into the machines, and that's what we're stuck with. But
Mhm.
like I said at the beginning, of this great time of change, this is a time where people are really interested in thinking differently. And so I know Sasha and Paul, you guys are working on something different with Lily that maybe it's just one example of how things people can think differently.
You know, what's funny is when you said personalized learning, when I started my tutoring company like 10 years ago, I said tutors get such a bad rap because the kids feel like, oh, something's wrong with me, or you know, am I not doing the right thing? I need to have a tutor and I'm not catching up with the class. And I was like, you know, I don't want to be a tutor. I said it's more like a personal teacher, and I called the company basically Personal Teaching Solutions, because every kid deserves a personal teacher, really, and they all have such different needs and diverse needs and things. And that's how, when Paul and I, you know, first started dating, that was it. Like we were like, oh my gosh, there's all these synchronicities and, you know, understanding each individual, really, which is how like.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, even kind of how Salted Ketchup and the whole company kind of started between us. It was, there's a lot of like universal signs, synchronicities. Holly spoke with me on that a couple times, and I appreciate it. Thank you. It's, you know, what I see, especially now with, as you mentioned, David, was we're kind of in this like modern day like Renaissance movement. Like this is as close to revolutionary as you're gonna get, you know, you could get with technology and need for change and communication. You know, having come from a background, I actually worked with at-risk special needs youth and elderly, and I did a lot of adaptive plans in a past life, or wore that hat for a while. And the biggest reason why I made the change, I think, and got out of it as a career was there wasn't outlets to do it. You know, I you know, hate to quote like a Frank Sinatra, but do it my way. You know, do it the way that people really need it, and give them the changes and the opportunities. You know, whether it's, you know, opening a school for, you know, at-risk youth or kids, you know, coming from, you know, depressed regions, and teaching them how to work on cars or rebuild motors and transmissions, or whether it's, you know, teaching those same genre of children how to program and build a website, you know, and any core foundation in between. I think those are things that, you know, all ages should be given the tools to learn in synchronicity with what their calling is. If that's,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, no, awesome. And I will say there's a book by Ken Robinson called Creative Schools, where he actually profiles schools that go into low-income communities and have kids build cars, and it completely changes their life. And I think that's definitely the one thing I've been thinking about, though, is that I think the new system and the new way of schooling and the way we should be thinking about all of this is with creativity at the center and autonomy, like giving the kids autonomy, because the system we have now is command and control. And, you know, we all of us have talked about parenting before, and it's like with parenting, it's the same idea. It's like you're trying to control your child all the time. And so that's the same way that schools are run. It's like control the children, control the teachers, control the principals through the superintendent, control the superintendent through the board. Like everybody's being controlled by somebody, and the kids are the ones at the bottom that are the most controlled. And so really giving them autonomy, giving them the ability to be creative, but you actually don't, what I'm really understanding is you don't have to actually teach them creativity. You have to teach them autonomy, because Holly, you know very well, as someone who's tapped into the universal truth, that that's how you're born. And when you're 6 years old, that's what they are, that's what they have. So we need to create environments and soils where that's what we're keeping in them instead of conditioning it out of them. So that to me, that's the center of everything with whatever movement and whatever we're doing to change schools, is to remember that kids are the guiding light, and they already have all the guiding light, and we just got to keep it in them.
Yeah, it's brilliant what you just said, because we are born connected, and that's where creativity comes from, the connection that we have to everybody else in the world that's being creative. Historically, it's already proven people invented things at the same time. They discovered things at the same time all over the world before there was an internet, before they knew that somebody in Italy was making the noodle and somebody in China was making the noodle at, you know, at the same time. So it already exists. And then, yeah, we pigeonhole our children and force them to learn certain things at certain ages, at certain educational levels. And then we set them free and say, go to school and do whatever you want. What that? Well, I don't know what that is. You didn't show me all the things I could learn, right? You should be learning how to build a website when you're in grade 7, because 90, like good 70% of students will have some sort of a job where they're going to need their own website, where they're going to need their own presence, learn how to use social media in a business way, not just in a, ratting on other people and taking about selfies way, which is fine. But, you learn to use that. And we're sponges when we're young. When you can, England, I believe they start school at age 3, because they know that is when we really are starting to learn. We're very, very much more intelligent when we're younger as sponges and downloading information. So we're downloading until we're 7 years old. What do you want your kids to download? But not every, like some people like the school system, like homeschooling. And I talked to David about that too, because I said, you can be in your California home and you can be rallying up parents from all over the United States that want to homeschool, but they don't necessarily want to do it individually. They could have like a neighborhood schooling program, and where I might have the kids over my house one day of the week, or Lily might do it another day of the week, and she'll do art, and somebody else will do another. So I, as a parent, I get a break. I may not want to homeschool because I don't like it, but my kid needs it. He's on the spectrum, or he's got some kind of social anxiety, or even temporarily he may need it. Maybe they're sick or there's an illness, right? So that group homeschooling right now, we're so segregated. We're homeschooling our kids, but they're all alone, right? They're not mingling. They're not with their kids. They're not socializing. And if the parents feel like they have no choice, it's all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, like, I know Sasha really feels that one in her heart, because that's some of the issues you've come up with. But Lily has brought in the art piece, where you can teach your kids English, you can teach your kids math, and it's brought up on, I think she was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, a teacher. What is her name? Chandra.
Shirley Mason, 100
Right.
years old, British educator.
100
She
years
is
ago.
trying to teach children for children's sake as an individual human being.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Shirley Mason.
She had a really good mission, and it didn't get enough attention in mine. I did a lot of research when she told me about it, because I helped her with a business plan around it, and it's brilliant. And part of it is like, if people learn math probably 100 different ways. I don't know, at least 5 different ways. There's different ways of learning math, right? Some are visual, they need repetitiveness. Some get it just like that, and they just want to move on to the next thing, right? Some want to start here and then work their way down. Some want to start here and work their way up. So yeah, it's all wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it served us in the 20th century when we needed to have, where we were in our level of consciousness and where we were as a world. But it's time to really change. And as you were talking about the teacher you like, Lily, I was thinking about Maria Montessori, because she was around the same time. And that's some of her core beliefs are believing in the individual rights and freedom of the child. So basic. Yeah, we struggle to remember that.
What's your experience, Lily, with teaching using art? How do you find that the kids respond when they learning English? Because you teach English with art, right? In Korea.
Oh, how to say? Oh, I have the first reading just 2 years ago in June with Holly, when I was struggling. How can I get the message out? Because I was really appreciated by kids. Every kid loved the way of my teaching, but not all the parents love the way of my teaching, because they want academic results. So I have been like in between, how I can get parent support at the same time, and to support the children as the way they wanted to learn. And then so that the journey started from 2 years before, when Holly did the first reading with me. But at that time, I didn't totally understand what's happening, because I was struggling to pay my bill and to get parents supporting me and teach the way I wanted to teach at the same time. Yeah. And then Holly told me I had like something happening, like the way I could never imagine, but it's happening. It's in an unexpected way. It's not the way I'm doing 2 years ago. So I'm like step by step, and like getting to know myself better. And then I get more confident to explain how I really wanted to teach, to educate the parents,
Right.
And then, when the COVID come, and then it's like, I don't know, it's something really good and something really bad. And I have like more than 20 students, but when the COVID come, I only have 4 students. So it's like I have no way to keep my school going. And then I found Holly again, and Holly said, it's time for me to spread the message about creativity. Just do it when I'm not ready. But
On the
but
internet.
it's,
Yeah.
on the
Yes,
internet,
yes.
it's like 3 months ago. I think it's 3 months ago. And then it's just blow my mind away. I couldn't believe it. The people around the world is more supportive than the people at my local. And then I got the online teaching, like art class, but actually it's not art. It's like a self-expression. I want kids have a space and time to express the way they wanted to. So it's not about English. It's not about art. Actually, it's about self-expression. Just to give them time and space to express themselves in their own unique way. And then I'm not confident about the way I'm teaching actually, because it's online. It's not in person. How can I let kids understand me the way the kids understand me in my local school? And then the amazing thing happened. I don't know. It's maybe university is helping me. Maybe the university is helping me. I got all the people, my friends, the author friends, and new friends coming to the website, the creating together group to support me. They like my creativity. They adore the children. So it's like they are helping me to building my confidence. Oh, I'm doing the right thing. Yes, even I couldn't pay my bill, it's okay. We're getting better. We're getting better.
Yeah.
And then the kids I teach online, it's one from Indiana, and the 3 kids is from the California, and then the other 3-4 kids from my local. I make them together, and then the kids from the Indiana and the California, they just amaze me when I ask them. Well, we have like 10 weeks weekly art class at section 1 we finish, but I really want to know, how do they feel my art class? How do they think? And they gave me the exact answer. I really want to do my work with children. And they told me, I like your art class because I can use my imagination. I like your art class because I can make my story. I like your class because I can use my 5 senses. So it's all I want and nothing more. That's it. So that's how I understand. It's not about the in-person or online. It's about connection. So no matter where you are, if you got a connection, it's the right thing. It's you're in the flow. So you are in the alignment. So I think that's why Holly has taught me it was a long way. And how I met Sasha, we found each other. It's just like, you are me and I'm you. We are the same, but we are living different places, but we are so connected. So I'm so happy. Yes.
And like, you know what? And you just said it right there. They're meeting online. The kids are online already. They're online gaming with kids from all over the world.
Yes.
They're Snapchatting with kids from all over the world. Like, they're already doing that. So why not, if I've got 3 couple of kids and my neighbor's got a few kids and we want to homeschool together, or Sasha's got her own private school, or you've got your own private school. Why not, grade 6 or grade 6, 7, and 8, we're going to have Lily on the computer,
Yes.
got it on the screen for an hour every week. Lily's going to do an art class, and you're going to meet these people and these kids in Korea, and you're going to get to know them. You might even become, old-fashioned pen pals, right? And you create that connection with people all over the world, because that's their future. Their future is going to be interacting internationally, right?
Yeah. And so Holly,
more global.
Yeah, that idea right there. I've had 5 friends in the last week tell me this, because just in California, with LA Unified closing and these big districts closing, everyone's like, I think my district is next. And that's exactly what's happening. And so the parents are kind of like, wait, why are we waiting for the schools to reopen? Why don't we just organize our friends? And they're talking about hiring a teacher in person, but what you're talking about is even more creative, which is like, maybe hire a babysitter. As the parents need a break, but like, you could have the best online teachers in the world in their subject. I'm going to call you that, Lily. The best in their area, you know, these amazing people, and they could come into your living room via the technology. And you've just changed school right there. And then we amplify it, we put it on Heart of the Matter website, and we allow everyone to do that. And a lot of people would have never, ever, ever, ever thought about that if it wasn't for COVID. They would still be thinking, well, how can we get them into a classroom, and how can we do this? And but Sasha, earlier you were about to say something, and I wanted to give you a chance to share whatever was coming through you.
How, you know, when Lily and I first connected, it was through that same idea or thinking where, and Lily, I'll speak for you a little bit and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were, or if I misspeak, but we both said we have the utmost respect for children and we treat them as at the same level as us. It's not like they're below us or younger than us or anything like that. We just see them as an individual and meet them where they are and listen to them and understand what they need in that moment. And so Lily uses creativity in order to help them share. What I do, well, especially like right now and these past years or whatever, especially with being an ESOL teacher and ESOL coordinator, is really helping them develop their language so then they can express themselves. So Lily is using art and I'm using language, and we were speaking about like all these different ways that we help kids, and we said, like, I told him, like, I'm you and you're me, and we're like totally connected, and she's on the opposite side of the world, you know. And, we just, through that, we said, you know, it's kind of rare, and we maybe feel like maybe like we don't always fit in the box because we think like that, and it's not that, you know, like you were saying, like it's more controlling and I'm the teacher and you're the kid and this is how it has to be. So we really connected through that, and yeah, it's turned into some really fun, creative ideas.
Yeah, and there is a program which I need to remember the name right now. I think it's called OutSchool, where they actually have a similar version of this, where you can sign up for like courses about Star Wars and things that kids really love, and they just come into your living room. And it was created for the homeschool community. Oh, and on the homeschool note, so 5 years ago, 3% of the U.S. homeschooled, and now it's 6% even before COVID. I haven't looked in the last year, but this is just a year ago.
I'm even surprised that's all it is. I thought
That's
it
all it
was
is.
way more than that.
But it's doubled. So even though the numbers are still small, it's doubled. So it's
but they don't. Yeah. But they don't accept the teacher outside the Western country. They only accept the teacher New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and America. Because I have tried that several times, but they say no. They say no.
That's the ESL. That's the ESL.
No. I'm trying to using art and creativity to build a class and introduce myself to them, but they said no, because they are not accept the teacher from like then they
for OutSchool.
Yeah, for OutSchool.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Okay, so that's a problem. So that's why we have to solve that. So yeah, this is one small model, but there at least is one out there. But yeah, we already know one huge problem that's an issue. So okay, we'll take care of that.
Take care of it, universe.
The other idea that I had shared, exactly, put it out there. The other idea I'd shared the other day that my friend Stacy and I came up with just in a conversation is, what if we could actually have the best wisdom teachers in the world start teaching our kids virtually. So like Oprah does a class, or Eckhart does a class, and folks like Lily and Sasha, you work with them to say, here's how you need to kind of talk to a 5-year-old, or here's how you talk to it, you know, developmentally, this is what you need to know. Or because how amazing would it be for kids that are already, like I said, they're already shining their light so bright. And then what is it, about age 7, where they start dimming their light based on conditioning? What if we could actually Eckhart deliver directly to their living room with a small group of parents? So I think the way the business models need to be changed, because right now it's like the school district is the cable company. I always talk about them as a cable company, as a charter school operator. It's like, how many times have you tried to change the cable company, right? It's such a big, massive conglomerate, and all the laws are written for them, and they're and there's so much power in the lobbyists. And one of my jobs when I worked in DC was to be a receptionist for the lobbying firm for the cable company. like nothing gets by them. They have the most expensive lawyers and the best lobbyists. So I learned a lot as I was answering their phones. but anyway, so like we have to also think about breaking down the actual structural models. And that's why I love this idea of thinking about homeschooling and virtual schooling. And there's just so many different ways we could do this. And I just think there's the infinite possibilities once we get out of the paradigm, just totally get out of the current way of thinking.
Well, there's two things that are really important in catalyzing change, and that's creating a movement, and that creates momentum. And once the momentum starts, it only picks up speed, right? And there's always that crossover where it seems like it's at a plateau, and then, right? And sadly, it may take a couple of more, not like tragedies, not so much tragedies like COVID, but more wake-up calls for people to say, like, this is really important. In the United States, me being from Canada, and I know in a lot of Asian countries as well, higher education is an addiction. I want my kids to go to university. My kids need to go to college. They have to have the best. They have to be at the best. They have to, right? So they're not going to subscribe to this. What? They're not going to learn English, science, history, math. You know, how are they going to get to university, right? So there's so many pieces that have to change. And yet we keep forgetting that some of the most brilliant minds did not finish college, did not finish university. You know, Bill Gates being one of them, Jobs being the other one, Elon Musk, another one, Nassim Haramein, which is about to get a Nobel Prize for completing Einstein's theory of relativity, did not go to university. He taught himself all of his physics and astrophysics and quantum physics and the unified field. So it's BS. It's BS that we're feeding ourselves that you have to go to. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with university, but that's where you got to kind of do that as well. We used to I've hosted over a dozen international students, and the ones that came from Japan were the ones that were the most. China was the same way about education. Their parents were like, oh, you put your nose to the book and you do nothing in Canada but study, get A+, right? And they did, and they were really, really good at it, and they were allowed to travel for that short period of time. But when they got home, the whole thing was higher education, and they started having them over in university, and then they started bringing them over when they were in grade 10 or 11 because they wanted their English to be down pat because they weren't doing so well in the university because of their English. Then they got as young as, I had one that was in grade 8, and it was like, we want them to have their education of their English so well so that by the time they get to university, they'll get those A+. And these poor kids were, they went through depression, anxiety, they were lost, they felt abandoned. It was not a good thing, right? But that's how far back we're going is, okay, they're in grade 8 now. What steps do I need to make so that they
kindergarten.
Get to university? Is it kindergarten now?
Well, the more affluent communities in the US are really starting like preschool.
What are they doing in kindergarten? They signing them up for university already?
Well, they're worried about like, will they get in the right kindergarten?
It's
really
happening in Korea too.
In Korea too, yeah. So I think what you're talking about, Holly, and I did a video of this, and I have my podcast coming out, which is like episode 4. But it's really talking about how COVID has, made us wake up, because the normal that we considered was 14 hours of outsourcing our children, high teenage suicide rates, high depression rates, addicted kids, ADHD medication left and right. This is the normal that we're considering in the social paradigm. And so on the call I was on earlier today, somebody said, yeah, even the issue with homeschooling is that people are homeschooling in the same way that they're doing regular school, meaning that they're just sticking them in a book and trying to measure how long it's taking them to read, right? And just going through the curriculum, and then because there is a homeschool movement that gets kids into really good colleges, to universities, because they know how to get their kids to learn, and really to learn all the things they need for college. So it is a need for an actual social paradigm shift where we start to ask ourselves. And I wrote a blog post about this after the college scandal in the US, where we're talking about, like, if we want to call BS on anything, I mean, that was ugly when we really saw what the dysfunction and scandals and all these rich people were doing for their kids and all the people that were
Yes.
involved in the universities.
That should
And
have
so
been all.
that's the obsession that we have, that, yeah, it does start in kindergarten with the most affluent communities. Now, let's be clear, in the US and the working class communities, they could get to, you know, whatever about college necessarily. Like they're not, you know, I grew up low income and doing out a lot of money with a single mom. And like, I didn't know what college was, and it did change my life. So it is helpful, obviously. That said, my dad left school at 14 and he is a successful entrepreneur. So there's multiple pathways. And,
Yeah.
but you know, it's actually just saying, let's call BS on the whole thing. Let's start to ask ourselves why our kids are depressed, why our kids are anxious, why we have so many issues, and then the education system actually helps solve the social issues. You know?
Well, I think Sasha and I talked about it. This is classic social influencing. You know, that's a psychological term, and we're influenced as collectively. And COVID is a pure example of how easily we are socially influenced. And it's like going along with the herd. We do what everybody else does. We don't think for ourselves anymore. You know, everybody wants their kids to go into Ivy League school and get a scholarship because you live in a football town. Then that's what every parent is doing. You know, my kid's going to be the football star and he's going to get a scholarship to Harvard, right? And if you live in a football town, then there's the collective that you don't belong unless you're doing this, right? And if you go step outside of the box, like you said, Sasha, then you don't belong, right? But when you go online, like Lily is doing, then she finds you are me and I am you, and there is this connection, and we can create that movement. That's what I love. What you're doing, David, is you're collecting people. Sounds like you're like alien. You're collecting these people into your mothership, and you guys are all gonna create a movement in the educational system. But you know, the downloads that I've gotten from the universe, like the next one is around women and consumerism and shopping, and there's other movements. We've had movements since the 1930s, you know, when all the women got together because we wanted to vote, and people got together because they wanted segregation of racism, and then the birth control pill, and then the burnings of the bra, which actually was a myth. I just found out that actually didn't happen. You know, and then fighting against war of Korea, and we've always had movements, but I think right now we're leading to multi movements. It's just gonna go and say, and education is one of them, because the education is paramount for the future of our existence as human beings. Because
well, yeah, and it's all connected. Sorry, Holly. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, that's it. I'm done.
Okay. It's I think it all comes down to freedom and autonomy. So if we're talking about the spiritual journey, it's like we're all trying to find the most, you know, authentic version of ourselves and be free. And so that's where I think the heart of all the movements will be. And so the way I'm thinking about heart of the matter is that we're building heart.
Page. Yeah, group.
Yeah, I'll put it in there on the Facebook page. But it's we are building heart-centered schools, meaning that every single element of the school has to be heart-centered. And so, and the idea of having different types of schools, if that's the number one principle and the number one focus, you're taking care of your people, you're taking care of the adults, you're taking care of the kids, you're taking care of the families, then that is a movement, and it's a principles-based movement. And it kind of reminds me of, there's a book called 1968, when a lot of things happened, a lot of social issues happened in that one year. And I feel like we're in that 2020s, like 1968, where it's kind of like everything's unraveling, and now is the chance for, and the other thing that I'm going to sound like Holly now, what I keep getting from the universe. No, but what I'm getting in, like, really in my meditations is that
getting very powerful.
Yeah, is that this is like going to be this is a collective bottoms up movement. It's not like changing the laws and the policies at the top. That will happen, but it's going to happen through the like the uprisings of the people. And I think people are really ready for education to change. Like, I have worked in all different types of communities, and they always get it. They always get it. There's a lot of head nodding. If you're a parent and you have a kid that is being asked to sit still all day and comply and follow rules all day, you get it. Like, there's just so many, you know, and it's like, so where's the creativity? So Sasha, tell me about, and Lily, I'd love to hear too. One of the things I love when we talked is how do you create like the environments for the kids where they're able to be creative and they're able to be themselves, and it's not about the compliance and the sit still for 52 minutes straight.
I think part of it is it's really knowing what the kid needs. So it's not that you're going against the rules or breaking the rules. It's more that you're pausing for a second to understand what the need is in that moment. And literally when you're running a classroom, or if parents are home right now, trying to run school from their living room, it's chaos and stressful all the time. So each moment you have to really check in with the kid and say, you know, is everything okay? Can we do this next? Can we take a break? Let's take a breath. Let's do some jumping jacks. Whatever, do we need a draw? Like, what can we do so that we can get through it together? I think that's a big piece. So even if it's taking time to get the momentum or a movement, it can happen immediately. So whether it's a teacher that's teaching an online Zoom class or a parent that's trying to figure out what's going on there on the computer while their kid is trying to learn, they can make it doable and not so difficult by really just getting in touch with the kid. When this all started, and Paul and I had started this Salted Ketchup project, basically, we were talking, and I said, everyone is thinking about, and I'm a teacher, but everyone was thinking about the teachers and the healthcare workers and the parents. And I said, no one's even talking about the kids. No one's asking how they are. No one's, taking their perspective into consideration. And the same thing now when schools are not reopening, just check in with them. Like, hey, how do you feel about it? Or, is there a class? So like Lily does these creative classes all the time. And now she and I are collaborating. I know you have to do online school and maybe it's not the most fun. Would you like to do this as an extra activity? And you get to meet friends from, across the world. So you can kind of balance everything out. And that's really how I approach it. Like, I don't have this major system. It's really take what's in front of you and you get through it in that moment and really check in with the individual.
What about you, Lily? Oh, go ahead, Paul. Okay.
No, I just one thing I wanted to add with what she was saying. I think, and it was my reading with Holly and the time I spent with her, she said, I'm always trying to do right, and I'm always trying to kind of fight the good fight for the right person. And I think that, keeping your heart open as an adult, because you're still learning the same way they are. Because even some of the stuff that we've worked on together, we've realized that it's not an age thing or a grouping thing or a cultural thing we work on together that, or it has, one genre or one demographic. We have kids that we've worked with from, Colorado to, New York City to, South Florida, and of course now in Korea. And, our project, we worked on, we had, kids giving feedback and responding from Italy and Sicily. And they were all different ages. It wasn't, 5 to 10. It wasn't clustering people. It was really giving them the freedom to express who they are and be themselves. Because there really is there should not be a limit. Again, part of the system that needs to change, is breaking down those boundaries and guidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. And then tell us about Salted Ketchup. I love it. Just remind us.
Just super quick. When we first started dating, we went to a diner and we ordered, you order all the junk food that you want. And milkshakes and French fries and chicken fingers. And we both ordered chicken fingers and French fries. And I asked him if he could pass the salt and ketchup. And I was like, am I really going to do this? I just met this guy. He's probably going to think I'm a little weird, but I figured, and that it's a Dr. Shafali and all the self-development that I've been working on. And I said, you know what, just put yourself out there. And if he doesn't like it, whatever, it's fine.
And the thing that brought us together, which we should say if you didn't catch the name, was she put salt on her ketchup before dipping the French fries in the ketchup. This way the salt doesn't fall off the French fry. And the only reason I say it and kind of drove with this because I thought that I was a genius for thinking of this since I was like 7 years old and nobody ever talked about it. It was like one of those don't bother it. Yeah, it's her idea. But I really wasn't gonna say anything about it. I'm on one of your first dates. You don't say those things, But I credit her for her bravery and her courage, and she was like, she just did it, and the look was probably a little exasperation at first, and she's like,
I was like, oh, the date's over.
oh no. And I'm like, great, put more salt on. No, I shouldn't say that. No, we were healthy. No. But really, it was not. It was cool. It was just that's kind of the human connection that we think everybody should have. There's that one unique click, and every person, every individual has something in common in this world. Even the simplest thing, we're humans as beings and life forms, but really every person has the same want and need for love, for attention, affection. There's different compassion components that we could go, limitlessly on, right? But it's that bond, that network is what, Salted Ketchup claims to be.
So that's how the name.
And that's how the name came to be.
Nice.
And then when COVID hit, like I said, I was like, no one's talking about the kids. Like, how are they feeling? And I was like, not just thank the teachers and thank the parents and thank the healthcare workers. I was like, thank the kids. Like, they're the ones that are experiencing this. This is new for them too, and it's super traumatic. We got people from around the world to make videos for the kids to help encourage them. And through that's how I met Lily. And when Lily and I connected, it was like that idea of like that salted ketchup. Like, she and I are so connected, and it was that piece that has literally turned us into best friends. Just noticing the light and the love in the other person and finding that connection versus saying like, oh, well, she's from halfway across the world and we have nothing in common. No, it's being open enough to say, hey, we are so connected and we have so much in common, and there's so much that we can build on. So that's like, it really came full circle. So it started with this salted ketchup 2 years ago, which is kind of how him and I always connect with each other and just try to be really open. Turned into a YouTube video, turned into an interview, turned into Lily seeing and connecting, and now here she and I are about to start our class together, making connections for these kids. So it's really cool. And then we meet, you, David, and Holly, and like everyone's, I'm over here like dancing because I think this is so cool that we're all together and being able to have a Zoom chat. I've never done that.
On Facebook Live.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And then Lily, what was the book you grabbed?
Yeah. Oh, I want to tell you guys something. When I first found Sasha, I saw the fleet conversation between Sasha and the fleet. That's Faiza, right? And then I Google her and I find the YouTube channel. How is smart to use that voice to let parents and teachers to see the kids and hear their voices. I have been struggling for more than 10 years to figure out the way how to educate the parents exactly the way I want to educate them, where they can accept it. But it's so smart. Like you share a good movie with other people. You don't need to say anything else. You just let them watch the movie, and they can get the message automatically. So I was fascinated by the Thanks the Kids project. So then I told Sasha, now we became twins. So Thanks the Kids and Creating Together are always gonna be together. And then Holly gave me the idea. So I said, I want to build some online school. And then how can Sasha and I work together? And then Holly got a message from the university, Heart School. And then she showed me the word HEART. There's art inside the heart. So that's amazing. It's the only thing I want to do the whole life. So we can. So now it's like 3 together. Heart School, Thanks the Kids, Creating Together now.
Nice.
And yesterday we did an interview with this author, Stephanie Ross-Season, and then she is writing a nonfiction storybook about Richard Carson, a person who bring the environment to movement like 50 years ago. I think she's a really quiet person, but she has her passion, and she bring her passion to the world in her unique way. And then the author, I asked the author a lot of questions, and she writing the book, is trying to tell the people everybody, even the famous people, or everyone, it's just that like each one of us, everyone is same. If you look at that, their kids, and so that's why she wanted to show how the famous people was a kid, and they love what they do, and then they become what they really want to be, and to do the thing they would love to do. So it's actually the way I'm teaching and message of Holly. It's really the message, like the author. It's to like the kid be the way they are and do what they want to do. So even the interview, it's like how to say, it's now directed to share the message with the parents, but it's like connect everyone together. So even they don't see now, but it's like a step by step. They were like spreading the message to everyone in the world.
That's really cool. So, okay, so Salted Ketchup is the YouTube channel. Okay.
That's where you guys are going to do it, on the Salted Ketchup YouTube channel?
Lily and I are going to do our class on Zoom. So Lily's class and our class starting next week is going to be through Zoom, and make sure that's like protected.
Where would they find you? Like, where would they find this course? Where would people connect with you?
So Lily has her Creating Together Facebook page,
Okay.
and also Instagram, and then I have the Salted Ketchup Facebook page and Instagram, and people.
Okay. So they can go to either place to find this course.
Okay, can you put that in the comments when we're done so people can find it?
Summer camp. I think it's an art summer camp, you're calling it, right?
Okay.
We're gonna use
The global summer online camp. Global summer online
Yes.
camp.
Okay.
Very cool.
That's cool.
Okay, well, I think it's about time to wrap up, but as we wrap up, are there any kind of just like final thoughts you wanted to share that you didn't get to share, or any closing thoughts before we close out here?
David, I really like that you are, not even like, I love that you're opening up the space to hear all the different ideas, and know that there's many experts in the arena, and that everyone can contribute and really help your movement and the heart of the matter evolve into what it's going to be. I think that's really important. It's kind of like how we're talking about, like with the kids and getting their input and getting their opinion, and you're doing the same thing even with the adults and bringing it all together. So really, thank you. I think that's incredible.
Thank you, and you're welcome, and thank you. But I was going to say also that I do think kids should be involved too. As you were talking, I'm like, yeah, that's what I was like masterful as a teacher, is just getting the kids involved and getting their input and making them think everything was their idea, even though it wasn't. But you know, like getting them to really feel like they were engaged. But yeah, so I think I told you I was getting like these scripted downloads, and what I got with the in just like 3 words was Mind Valley, WeWork, and a lean startup. So I'll explain that. So Mind Valley, you probably heard of. It's like online courses. It's definitely like a, so it's not Mind Valley, but just that concept of like a global community around like spirituality and like changing yourself and changing the world. And then WeWork, if you've heard of WeWork, it's a brilliant model because it's all about connection. And there's some controversy with the founder and other things. I'm not even gonna go into that, but like what I love about what he was really smart about is it's like the connection of people, and that they just blew up. I mean, just $1 billion company. I don't know where they are now, because again, this is 3 years ago. And then the third piece was Lean Startup, because Lean Startup has decentralized communities across the world where you can join a meetup group to build an entrepreneurial company through the Lean Startup principles. And I think they charge you like $20 a month. So that's where it started 3 years ago. And then obviously with Holly telling me this before I even had those downloads, then I started piecing it together and thinking like, oh yeah, this is definitely a community where, because I've been feeling for a while, so I built this innovative charter school, and I was in this cohort of innovative charter schools, and there was like 50 of them across the country. And I always felt like they weren't really that innovative. And I would always be the guy that people would get annoyed at, because I'd be like, you're doing it differently, and that's great, and they're wonderful. But you really shouldn't use the word innovation or anything, because you're actually just doing it a little bit differently. And so my dream is that like it actually is totally different. And that's just like, it's not even a dream, it's just why I'm here, to shepherd this, to be the vessel to make it happen, because there are so many smart people and so many creative ideas. And so I'm just creating the space. That's my gift, is creating the space, creating the place where people feel empowered to come up with new ideas. And that's why I'm so glad you guys are here, because we got to write the book on the conscious teacher. We got to come up with like 100 different school models. We got to make it happen all over the world. We need facilitators across the world. We need online facilitators. We need in-person facilitators. We need so many different people. So, and Holly already told me this is going to happen. She's like, you're going to give away all the stuff to the school, which I've done, by the way. I don't do anything at the school. I oversee and advise, but I don't have any jobs anymore. So you'll be proud of me, Holly. It took me 2 years, but
How long did you
I was in charge of everything. Yeah.
I am. 2 years is like a nanosecond to the universe. So
right. So I gave away everything I was in charge of. I was in charge of everything. Now I'm in charge of, like, I don't do anything. And I'm just committing to this just to get this off the ground. And we got 100 people in the group. And and the Facebook Lives came, just download, like, you need to do 40 of them. I was like, okay. So I even did the live before I got home from my run, because I was like really connected. I was like, just do the live now, because then you'll have to do 40 more, 39 more. So and then I just reached out to Lily and said, hey, do you want to do a talk? She's like, sure, let me invite my friends. I'm like, okay, cool.
Lily's becoming a connector.
She is. But this is what it's about. It's going to be about the people. It's going to be about the ideas. It's going to be about everybody seeking freedom and following the universal truths with a capital T. That's the heart of this. And the rest is going to all unfold. And Holly, you've told me several times, the universe has my back, and this is not going to be me alone. This is me just following the calling. And I'm meeting all these amazing people. I can't even explain to you how amazing people are that I meet.
It's taken a life of its own, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
That's what happens. The
Like,
universe, I always say this, the universe loves to play. And if you engage with it and you co-create with it, it'll play along with you. And it'll just make things will just happen. It might take 2 years. It might take 2 days. It might take 10 years. You know, I always tell the story with Dr. Shefali. I met Dr. Shefali 10 years ago before she was famous on Oprah. I interviewed her on a radio station that I had. And she asked me for a reading before on Oprah, and we talked about it. And I said, yeah, you're going to go on Oprah in February, and it's going to happen. 8 years later, we reconnect, and here I am, right? I got a lot of clients. I built AskHollyHall.com. I met all of you guys. So little did I know, 10 years ago, a seed was planted. I didn't think about it. I didn't pine over it. I thought nothing of it. Right? I had no idea that connection was going to turn into something 10 years later, and that I would be a facilitator and I would play with the universe, and I would start. If you guys could see what I see, you might lose it, but that's okay. No, if you guys could see what I could see, like, it's just so, this is so big. You have no idea. And it's just, you guys are very, very, very important pieces in this. Everyone is, whether you're a follower or a leader, a teacher or a student, everybody's got to step up to the plate. And kudos to you, David, because you stepped up to the plate. Yeah.
And I think what I was sharing this morning when we were meeting is that everyone has an opinion on education, because they either were a student or they don't have a child and they were a student. So it's like everyone has an opinion.
Everyone, yeah.
And it's actually really hard to change, because everyone's been conditioned to believe it should be a certain way. But that's okay. So I was going to say, Holly, the only time that I really start to get scared is when I tap into how big it actually will really be, and then I think my ego gets really freaked out. It's like, no, I have kids to raise. Just don't even do this. Don't even do this. But then I'm reminded that there's people around.
Yeah, like I said, you wouldn't want to be in my head sometimes, but I don't mean big as in global, economically, business, corporate, not that kind, not Mind Valley, not that kind of. It's how much it means to us, and I'm going to get teary-eyed, how much it means to us as a humanity. You know, all of you can do your research on it. We're in our sixth race. It's proven. Greg Braden, archaeologist, geographist. You can look at all the not geography, but, you know, ones that do historical geography. We've extincted ourselves 5 times. Zach Bush talks about it a lot, triple PhD. This is our 6th go at it, and we're going to make it this time. I know it. Every expert that has historically looked at the work, we're going to make it this time. And this is a big part of it, right? This is not woo-woo. It sounds like woo-woo, but it's not. You know, we have, this time we're going to do it.
Holly, when you were talking about the universe, that's how I talk about kids. So they start really small, plant a little seed. They always want to play. And if you're being too serious, they're really going to give you a hard time. And they take 10 years and all of a sudden, they can eat and they can hide and they can do everything on their own. And they're all of a sudden like an adult and everything comes to fruition. So I got goosebumps, like literally that's the kid. And if we remember to be like a kid and have fun and play with it, it's so easy.
You know what? You want to know in physics, and we're going overtime. I'm sorry, David. In physics, when you learn about physics, you learn about the universe, you look at, anybody knows everything spins. Everything spins. It's a spin theory, right? Every planet spins, every atom spins. And what does the kids love to do the most? They want to tumble on the ground and spin. They want to twirl around and spin. Why? Because it's a natural. They're in the element of what everything does. And then somewhere along the line, we stop spinning. I don't know where. It all happens different places for some of us, but somewhere we stop spinning.
It's a great visual.
Spin it back. Spin it back.
I actually think we should end on that note, unless
Yes.
there's any other things that people really want to share. But yeah, no, because I think my whole entire belief system around kids has always been that, like, just allow them to keep spinning. If we can allow them to keep spinning, that's how we're going to change the world. Let's close on that. All right, thanks so much for playing with me and having fun. And I know we'll be talking soon. All right, take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, bye.